Hello, Genesis family. Dustin McGowan with you all today as we are continuing on in our Lent devotional series. Today we find ourselves in Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46, as we are going to examine the parable of the sheep and the goats. In the first half of this chapter, there's two parables. There's the parable of the 10 virgins, and then there's the parable of the bags of gold, or the bags, or the talents, as some translations look at it. And those two parables focus on a couple of different things. The first one is really about our awareness, our preparedness for Jesus's return. Are we ready? Are we doing what we were called to do? Or have we fallen asleep? Have we been distracted? Secondly, is the parable of the bags of gold. Are we courageous in order to use the gifts in which God has used us for the building of the kingdom? Or by fear, do we shrink back and not do what God has called us to do because we are fearful of some type of consequence? It is important for us to be faithful to the calling that God has put on our lives. And today, we have a challenging parable, but a very important one, where Jesus is talking to us about what is the type of compassion in which we will live our lives with. Jesus, as he talks about in previous parables, like the parable of the weeds, where he separates the weeds from the healthy grass, or where he separates the wheat and the tare. Jesus is saying that he is going to divide those who are faithful, the sheep, from those who are unfaithful, the goats. And he lays out his criteria for what that faithfulness is. And it's very interesting. Jesus goes through this list of behaviors, responses to people. He says, I was hungry and you either fed me or did not feed me. I was thirsty and you either gave me something to drink or you did not. I was naked and either you clothed me or you did not clothe me. I was in prison and either you visited me or you did not visit me. Those who are listening or responding to Jesus in this judgment are either surprised that they did or did not do these things. Jesus, for those who are faithful to have provided, compassionately for those in need, says, here's your reward. And for those who did not, Jesus cast into eternal punishment. But it's very important for us to understand something about this passage. And that thing is that Jesus is not just talking about this flippant compassion to the poor, but he's talking about those who were willing to be aware and to see those in need, particularly when they had the opportunity to look the other way. That in their everyday lives, as they were coming and they were going, and the planning of their time, what would they consider it of? Did you see those who were easy to forget? Did you remember those who are easy to look over? It is important for us to think about that in our lives as we go to and fro. Are we seeing those who are being placed in our path to respond to? Are we responding in compassion? Are we responding with empathy and love and care? Are we willing to live sacrificially of our time and our resources and our talents that were talked about in the previous parable, in order to do good to those who are in need? Jesus says that those who are in need, those who are in vulnerable positions and need our care, are likened to himself. That when we miss the opportunity to serve those who are on the margins, who are in most need of our help and care, then we also miss the opportunity to have cared for Jesus. And when we do respond, Jesus says, you have responded to me in kind. In the same way, we are not just to look for those who can do something for us, who we know we desire a favorable reaction from them, those who can return the favor. But Jesus says our lives to a degree should be poured out on behalf of those who can never return the favor, those who can't do anything for us, those who are easy to move past because to serve them comes at more inconvenience to us than oftentimes we would like to absorb. But the beauty of that is that Jesus is saying that when we invest in those who can do nothing for us in this lifetime, Jesus is saying that I will repay everything in eternity. That nothing that we invest in people is lost on God. That he keeps track of every single penny, every single minute of our time. And that he, in the end, will repay with what is eternally valuable. And what he marks here is life everlasting with him. Are we investing in that in the ways in which God says it is important to invest? Where are we willing to give of ourselves in ways that are inconvenient, that are difficult, that call us outside of ourselves? That the life of faith is one that moves from the internal to the external. Once we have been transformed, our hearts have been changed, that we now move towards others in love, to do towards them what Jesus has done towards us. That is the beautiful cycle of grace, that those who have received grace now have committed their lives to being the dispensers of grace, because the grace we have received is too much for us to keep to ourselves, that we must now extend it, because we are people of overflow. Be encouraged, be called up, be challenged, that our lives might reflect the truths that are in our text for today. As we continue on in our Lent devotional series, allow the grace of the gospel to be your strength. Jesus is our all in all. Amen.